Have you ever wondered why your cucumber plants start the season strong, producing basket after basket of crisp, delicious cucumbers, only to suddenly slow down or stop altogether by midsummer? You water them, feed them, and hope they'll recover, but instead, the vines begin to yellow, the flowers disappear, and the harvest becomes smaller every week. Here's the good news: it doesn't have to happen that way. With a few proven gardening techniques, cucumber plants can continue producing healthy fruit well into late summer and in many climates, all the way until the first frost. Professional gardeners and experienced home growers use simple strategies that keep vines vigorous, encourage continuous flowering, and reduce the stress that normally causes plants to stop producing. Today, we're going to walk through every step you need to know. You'll learn how to water cucumbers correctly, why pruning matters more than most gardeners realize, the feeding schedule that keeps new flowers coming, and the simple harvesting trick that can dramatically increase production. We'll also cover the biggest mistakes that shorten the harvest season and explain exactly how to avoid them. If you love picking fresh cucumbers from your own garden, stay with us until the end, because the final tips are often the difference between harvesting for just a few weeks and enjoying fresh cucumbers until fall. Let's get started. The first secret to a long cucumber harvest is understanding why plants stop producing in the first place. Many gardeners assume cucumber plants simply reach the end of their life cycle by midsummer. While cucumbers are annual plants, they are capable of producing much longer than most people think. In fact, healthy vines can continue flowering and setting fruit for months if they remain free from stress. The biggest enemy of continuous production isn't age, it's plant stress. Every time a cucumber plant experiences drought, excessive heat, nutrient deficiency, disease, or irregular watering, it shifts its energy away from producing flowers and fruit. Instead, it focuses on survival. Once this happens repeatedly, flowering slows, leaves begin to yellow, and yields decline rapidly. Your goal as a gardener is simple: keep the plant comfortable, healthy, and growing steadily. That starts with proper watering. One of the most common mistakes gardeners make is watering deeply one day and then allowing the soil to become dry before watering again. Cucumbers hate these dramatic swings in soil moisture. When roots repeatedly dry out, the plant experiences stress even if it's watered later. This interruption affects flower production and often causes young fruits to become misshapen or bitter. Instead, aim for consistent moisture. The soil should remain evenly damp several inches below the surface without becoming soggy. Most gardens need about 1 to 1.5 inches of water each week, but during periods of intense summer heat, cucumber plants may require considerably more. Rather than watering a little every day, it's better to water deeply several times a week. Deep watering encourages roots to grow farther into the soil, making plants more resilient during hot weather. Always water early in the morning whenever possible. Morning watering allows leaves to dry quickly after sunrise, reducing the risk of fungal diseases while ensuring the plant has plenty of moisture before afternoon temperatures climb. Avoid watering in the evening if possible. Wet foliage overnight creates ideal conditions for diseases such as powdery mildew and downy mildew, two of the most common reasons cucumber plants decline before fall. Another important tip is to water at the base of the plant rather than spraying the leaves. Using drip irrigation, a soaker hose, or simply directing your watering can toward the soil keeps foliage dry and significantly reduces disease pressure throughout the growing season. Now let's talk about one of the easiest ways to conserve moisture and dramatically improve cucumber production. Mulch. A simple 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch can completely transform the growing conditions around your plants. Materials like clean straw, shredded leaves, untreated grass clippings, or compost help maintain even soil moisture, suppress weeds, and keep the root zone cooler during periods of extreme heat. Without mulch, the summer sun quickly dries the top layer of soil. Roots near the surface become stressed, forcing the plant to use valuable energy simply staying alive instead of producing flowers. Mulch also reduces evaporation, meaning you'll spend less time watering while your cucumber plants remain healthier. As organic mulch slowly breaks down, it feeds beneficial soil organisms that improve soil structure and nutrient availability, creating an even stronger foundation for continuous growth. Many experienced gardeners consider mulch one of the most valuable tools for extending the cucumber harvest season. But moisture alone isn't enough. As cucumber vines continue producing fruit week after week, they remove significant amounts of nutrients from the soil. Without regular feeding, plants gradually lose the energy needed to develop new flowers and support continuous harvests. Now that your cucumber plants have consistent moisture and a protective layer of mulch, it's time to focus on the fuel that keeps them producing for months: proper nutrition. Many gardeners make one of two mistakes. Some fertilize heavily at planting and never feed their cucumbers again. Others continue adding high nitrogen fertilizer throughout the season, hoping bigger vines will produce more cucumbers. Neither approach delivers the best results. Early in the season, cucumber plants do benefit from nitrogen because they need strong stems and healthy leaves. But once flowering begins, the plant's priorities change. At this stage, too much nitrogen encourages lush green growth while reducing flower and fruit production. Instead, switch to a fertilizer that contains less nitrogen and more phosphorus and potassium. These nutrients support flowering, fruit development, and overall plant health. A balanced vegetable fertilizer or one designed for tomatoes and peppers often works very well for cucumbers too. Apply it according to the manufacturer's instructions every 2 to 3 weeks during the main growing season. Organic gardeners have several excellent options as well. Well-aged compost, compost tea, fish emulsion, seaweed extract, and worm castings all provide nutrients while improving soil health. Seaweed extract is especially popular because it contains trace minerals that help plants tolerate heat and environmental stress. Although it isn't a complete fertilizer by itself, it works wonderfully alongside compost or another balanced feeding program. Remember, more fertilizer is not always better. Overfeeding can damage roots, produce excessive foliage, and even reduce the number of cucumbers your plants set. Steady, moderate feeding almost always outperforms heavy applications. Now let's move to one of the most overlooked techniques for extending cucumber production: harvesting. Believe it or not, the way you harvest can determine how many cucumbers your plants produce next. Cucumber plants have one main goal: producing mature seeds. When fruits are allowed to remain on the vine until they become oversized, yellow, or fully mature, the plant assumes its job is nearly complete. As a result, it slows the production of new flowers. That's why experienced gardeners harvest frequently. Check your plants every day during peak season. Pick cucumbers while they're still young, firm, and the proper size for the variety you're growing. For slicing cucumbers, that usually means harvesting when they're about 6 to 8 inches long. Pickling varieties are often best harvested at 3 to 5 inches. Use clean pruning shears or scissors whenever possible rather than twisting fruit off the vine. Pulling by hand can accidentally damage stems, flowers, or nearby developing cucumbers. Frequent harvesting sends a powerful message to the plant: keep producing more fruit. Many gardeners are amazed at how quickly new cucumbers appear after a thorough harvest. Now let's discuss pruning. Some gardeners never prune cucumber plants because they worry about reducing production. In reality, thoughtful pruning often increases harvests by improving airflow, reducing disease, and directing energy toward healthy growth. Start by removing yellow, damaged, or diseased leaves as soon as you notice them. These leaves contribute very little to photosynthesis and can become breeding grounds for fungal diseases. If lower leaves are touching the soil, remove them as well. Soil frequently contains fungal spores that splash onto wet leaves during rain or watering. Good air circulation helps foliage dry faster after dew or rain, making disease much less likely. As vines continue growing, you may also notice weak-side shoots that produce little fruit, while creating dense, tangled growth. Removing a few of these crowded shoots allows sunlight to reach more of the plant and improves airflow throughout the canopy. Be careful not to remove too much healthy foliage at one time. Leaves are still essential, because they produce the energy needed for flowering and fruit development. A light, regular pruning every week is far more effective than a major pruning session later in the season. Another powerful strategy is vertical growing. If your cucumbers are sprawling across the ground, consider training them onto a sturdy trellis, fence, or netting. Growing vertically offers several advantages. First, fruits stay cleaner because they aren't lying on damp soil. Second, airflow improves dramatically, reducing fungal diseases. Third, leaves receive more even sunlight, increasing photosynthesis. And finally, harvesting becomes much easier because cucumbers are clearly visible instead of hiding beneath dense foliage. Vertical growing also reduces the chances of fruits developing flat spots or rotting where they contact wet ground. Even a simple homemade trellis built from wooden stakes and strong garden netting can make a remarkable difference in both plant health and total harvest. However, even the healthiest cucumber plants face another major challenge during the hottest weeks of summer. Heat stress can quickly reduce flowering and fruit production if you don't take the right precautions. By midsummer, many gardeners notice a sudden slowdown in cucumber production. The vines are still alive, but fewer flowers appear, tiny cucumbers stop growing, and the leaves begin to look tired. Often, the culprit isn't a lack of fertilizer or water, it's heat stress. When daytime temperatures regularly climb above 90 degrees Fahrenheit 32 degrees Celsius, cucumber plants naturally become less productive. They conserve energy to survive the heat instead of producing new fruit. The good news is that there are several simple ways to reduce this stress. The first is to keep the soil cool. If you've already added a thick layer of mulch, you've taken an important step. Mulch insulates the root zone, preventing rapid temperature swings and helping the soil retain moisture during hot afternoons. The second strategy is timing. Water early in the morning, before the sun becomes intense. Plants that begin the day well, hydrated are much better equipped to handle afternoon heat. Avoid watering during the hottest part of the day whenever possible. Much of the moisture evaporates before reaching the roots, making watering less efficient. In areas that experience prolonged heat waves, temporary shade can make a surprising difference. A piece of shade cloth that blocks about 30 to 40% of sunlight can protect cucumber plants during the hottest hours of the afternoon without reducing growth significantly. This isn't something you'll need all season, just during periods of extreme heat. Once temperatures moderate, remove the shade so the plants can receive full sunlight again. Now let's talk about pollination. A healthy cucumber plant may produce dozens of beautiful flowers, but without successful pollination, those flowers will never become cucumbers. You'll notice tiny fruits forming behind female flowers, only to shrivel and fall off a few days later. Poor pollination is often the reason. Bees are the primary pollinators for cucumbers, and attracting them to your garden is one of the easiest ways to increase production. Planting flowers nearby, such as zinnias, marigolds, cosmos, calendula, or borage, provides nectar throughout the season and encourages pollinators to visit your vegetable garden regularly. Try to avoid spraying insecticides while cucumbers are flowering, especially during the day, when bees are actively foraging. Even products labeled as organic can harm beneficial insects if they're applied incorrectly. If pollinator activity is very low, you can even hand-pollinate your cucumber flowers. Using a small paintbrush or cotton swab, gently transfer pollen from the center of a male flower to the center of a female flower. Female flowers are easy to recognize because they already have a tiny immature cucumber directly behind the blossom. This simple technique can dramatically improve fruit set, especially during periods of rainy weather or unusually hot conditions when bees are less active. Now let's turn our attention to disease prevention. Nothing ends a cucumber harvest faster than widespread disease. Fortunately, many common problems can be prevented before they ever begin. Powdery mildew is one of the most recognizable cucumber diseases. It appears as a white, powder-like coating on leaves, gradually reducing the plant's ability to produce energy through photosynthesis. Downy mildew is another serious disease, causing yellow patches on leaves that eventually turn brown and die. Both diseases spread more rapidly when foliage stays wet and air circulation is poor. That's why proper spacing, trellising, watering at the base, and removing damaged leaves are so effective. Each one reduces humidity around the plant and makes disease much less likely. Inspect your cucumber vines every few days. Look underneath the leaves, where insects and disease often appear first. The sooner you notice a problem, the easier it is to manage. If you find a severely diseased leaf, remove it immediately using clean pruning shears. Never leave infected leaves lying in the garden. Dispose of them in the trash rather than adding them to compost unless your compost pile reaches temperatures high enough to destroy plant pathogens. Healthy plants also depend on healthy roots. Avoid stepping around the base of cucumber plants, as compacted soil limits oxygen and makes root growth more difficult. If weeds appear, pull them while they're still small. Large weeds compete for water and nutrients, creating unnecessary stress during the hottest part of the season. One secret used by many experienced gardeners is succession planting. Instead of planting every cucumber seed on the same day, sow another small group of seeds 3 to 4 weeks after your first planting. Then, if space allows, plant one more group a few weeks later. As your earliest vines begin slowing down, younger plants reach their peak production. The result is a steady supply of fresh cucumbers for a much longer period instead of one short burst of harvest. This simple strategy is especially useful in regions with long growing seasons. Finally, don't assume an older cucumber plant is finished just because production slows. If the vine is still healthy, remove old fruits, trim damaged leaves, feed lightly with a balanced fertilizer, water deeply, and continue harvesting frequently. Many gardeners are surprised to see a fresh wave of flowers appear just a week or two later. By now, you've learned the key principles that keep cucumber plants healthy throughout the growing season. But success doesn't come from doing one thing perfectly, it comes from doing several small things consistently. Let's put everything together into a simple weekly routine that anyone can follow. Every morning, take a few minutes to walk through your garden. Look closely at your cucumber plants. Are the leaves a healthy green? Are there new flowers opening? Do you see any yellowing leaves, insect damage, or signs of disease? This quick inspection often takes less than 5 minutes, but it allows you to catch small problems before they become major ones. Every few days, check the soil moisture by inserting your finger 2 or 3 inches into the ground. If the soil feels dry at that depth, it's time to water deeply. If it's still moist, wait another day and check again. Avoid watering by a fixed schedule. Instead, let the soil tell you when your plants need moisture. Once each week, remove any yellow, damaged, or diseased leaves. Clean up weeds around the base of the plants, inspect your mulch layer, and make sure the vines remain supported on their trellis. If mulch has thinned over time, add another light layer to maintain moisture and keep the root zone cool. Every 2 to 3 weeks, provide a light feeding with a balanced fertilizer or your preferred organic alternative. Remember, consistency is more important than heavy applications. Then comes perhaps the most enjoyable part of the routine, harvesting. Never let ripe cucumbers sit on the vine for long. The more often you harvest, the more your plants respond by producing new flowers and fresh fruit. During peak season, it's not unusual to harvest every day. Now, Let's review the biggest mistakes that cause cucumber plants to stop producing far too early. The first mistake is inconsistent watering. Allowing the soil to dry out completely and then soaking it heavily stresses the roots and interrupts fruit production. The second mistake is allowing cucumbers to become oversized. Large, overripe fruit signals the plant that its life cycle is nearly complete, slowing the production of new flowers. The third mistake is overfeeding with nitrogen. Big green vines may look impressive, but they often produce fewer cucumbers. The fourth mistake is ignoring disease until it spreads throughout the plant. Removing one infected leaf today is much easier than losing an entire vine next week. The fifth mistake is poor airflow. Overcrowded plants remain damp longer after rain or watering, creating ideal conditions for fungal diseases. Simple spacing, trellising, and light pruning can make an enormous difference. And finally, many gardeners simply stop paying attention after the first big harvest. But cucumber plants are remarkably productive when given regular care. A few minutes each week can reward you with weeks or even months of additional harvests. As summer gradually turns toward fall, keep watching the weather forecast. In many regions, cucumber plants continue producing until temperatures consistently drop below about 50 degrees Fahrenheit 10 degrees Celsius, and they'll usually be killed by the first frost. As cooler nights arrive, growth naturally slows, but healthy vines often continue producing surprisingly well. If an early light frost is expected, covering plants overnight with frost cloth or lightweight row covers may protect them long enough for another harvest. Even a few extra weeks can provide dozens of additional cucumbers. One final tip from experienced gardeners is to keep a simple garden journal. Write down your planting date, fertilizer schedule, weather conditions, and harvest amounts. After just one season, you'll begin noticing patterns that help you grow even better. Cucumbers next year. Every garden is different. Your soil, climate, rainfall, and growing season all influence how your plants perform. The more you observe, the more successful you'll become. Growing cucumbers isn't about luck. It's about understanding what the plants need and providing those conditions consistently throughout the season. Healthy soil, even moisture, regular feeding, good airflow, frequent harvesting, and careful observation work together to keep vines vigorous and productive. Follow these proven techniques, and instead of watching your cucumber plants fade away in midsummer, you'll enjoy crisp, fresh cucumbers well into late summer and, in many gardens, right up until the first frost. Thank you for watching. If you found these gardening tips helpful, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest gardening guides. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's your best trick for keeping cucumber plants producing all season long? Share your experience, you might help another gardener enjoy their biggest harvest yet. Until next time, happy gardening, and may your garden reward you with an abundant harvest all season long.